Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you know him and you love him. He is the Santa Claus of conservatism. He is the man that can teach you everything about constitutional politics like none other. He is the great one himself, Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor. Good evening, sir. A tremendous honor to have you on the air with us tonight.
That'll be my new nickname.
Would it be your new
You
nickname?
called me Drone. You didn't hear you said you corrected it to Jones, but you said Drone at
Drones.
first. I'll take it.
See, I'm just glad to be able to sit at your feet every single night, and talk with you, sir. Uh,
That's
now,
white privilege.
that's why. Oh my God, um, Michael. There are lots of Americans who are completely over anxious at this point because the election was 2 weeks ago. Donald Trump hasn't proven anything just yet. There's no proof of any voter fraud whatsoever in America. This was the perfect election. Not even Democrat Marxists are complaining about voter suppression. This was a perfect election. Donald Trump hasn't proven anything. We're running out of time. On the 14th, the Electoral College will come together and they will announce that Joe Biden is the president. At least that's what they tell us. Can you tell us what the Constitution says about electing the president of the United States of America?
Well, the Electoral College will meet and they will vote, and it depends on how the electors vote. All right. Now they could defect from the delegation that they represent
Mm-hmm.
because if Biden wins Arizona, then the Biden electors meet and for the Electoral College at the state capitol, and then they all vote. And they could defect. There could be one or two. It's just very rare. I mean, Trump had I don't know, five, and Hillary Clinton had one or two, three. I don't remember. But there was a handful that defected. It didn't change a single thing. In the history of the Electoral College,
Mm-hmm.
they've always gone the way the public has voted. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no real hope there for a whole bunch of honest Democrats. And that may be a contradiction in terms, but honest Democrats meet and then decide to vote for Trump because they know the election was bamboozled. It's just idiotic to believe that Maricopa County, of all places, went blue, and Tarrant County, the reddest county in Texas, almost went blue. Um, and there's a reason why. There's fraud going on. They target these places. They fill them with new people that move out of places like California,
Yep.
and then they bring their baggage with them. As you know, we've complained about that here a lot. Welcome to Texas, now move. We don't want your politics here. The reason why people want to move to Texas is because we don't have a whole lot of liberal politics. We have some, but not a whole lot. And that's
Exactly.
why our state is sane and makes money and has its own grid. You guys share two power grids in America. The third power grid is in Texas.
Yep.
We didn't want to be connected to all you guys. I've been saying for years that we need to build a wall, and I tried to convince Trump to start in El Paso and bring it all the way around to Arkansas. That
Mm-hmm.
build the wall, keep everybody out of this country, our republic,
Exactly.
from the north.
Just real
Yeah, not
quick.
the south. The south is
Just
no big deal.
just real
They bring
quick. I
great
got. I
ideas
gotta
to
ask. I
Mexico.
gotta ask you this because
Ask me anything.
there's an important date, and then we're gonna come back after this particular break, and I want to talk with you in greater detail
Hmm.
about the electoral college, the elections, the legal strategies that are going forward. But January 6th is more important than the 14th of December. And
Yes.
why is January 6th more important than the 14th of December when the Electoral College comes together?
Well, the Electoral College comes together, and that is based on the state legislatures deciding which electors to send. Okay, they could send their own, and say Arizona legislature could say, there's been tomfoolery here. We're not going to accept the popular vote. We will send our own delegates. And then they choose among their legislatures and send them. Okay. And then in January, the date you proposed was the date that they have to have all this information sent to the Senate. And then the vice president counts the votes. If there are not 270 electoral votes for either candidate, then it gets moved to Congress in general, where the House of Representatives will pick the president and the Senate will pick the vice president. And there, say, Texas has 35 delegates in Congress, but we don't get 35 votes. Okay, 2 of those votes are in the Senate, and so the remaining 33 are in the House of Representatives. And those 33 will come together, and they will vote in a caucus for Texas, the Texas caucus. And whoever they decide on, let's say they pick Trump because we're Texas, and there'll be more Republicans and Democrats there in that caucus. Yes. So we say Trump gets to be president. Well, then when the vote is taken in the legislature, the House of Representatives, Texas gets 1 vote. So basically, you have 50 states voting, and someone has to get 26 states to win. So out of 50 votes. So
so they don't need to get 28 because Obama said it was 57 states. So
yes, but he was counting Puerto Rico and the federal district of Columbia.
When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking with a brilliant constitutionalist. We will be talking about this. January 6th is very important. We're going to go over some of the details about January 6th to assuage some of your concerns. There are 2 big questions that need to be asked tonight of you. Number 1, do you know where your children are? Number 2, do your children know where you are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
I'm Paul Stanley of KISS. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
I'm Councilman Eric Joya. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
Help make a safer, stronger DC. Whether it's a missing person, an unsolved homicide, or keeping citizens safe, there are a number of cases that are still unsolved. Please take a moment to listen to this one.
On Wednesday, May 27, 2015, at approximately 9:40 p.m., 27-year-old D.C. resident Sharnice Milton was shot and killed in the 2700 block of Good Hope Road Southeast. The victim, a journalist for Capital Community News, was changing buses on her way home from covering a meeting. Police believe someone on a dirt bike fired at Ms. Milton, but that she was not the intended target. The Metropolitan Police Department currently offers a reward of up to $25,000 to anyone that provides information which leads to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons wanted for any homicide in the District of Columbia.
If you have information about this case, contact the Metropolitan Police Department, 202-727-9099, and an anonymous text number, 50411.
They should have stayed, but they was a coward and they left.
Turn yourself in. That's the message from the family of a little boy hit and killed on the city's south side. IMPD still searching for the suspect, and tonight, loved ones will remember the boy with a candlelight vigil. News 8's Julia Dang is there now, and Julia, I understand that you talked to the boy's family today.
I did, Phil. They are outraged. The driver didn't stop and still hasn't been arrested or identified. You might be able to see those stuffed animals laid out on the ground behind me. In about an hour, loved ones are planning to gather here and light candles, but not the kind they were expecting.
Everybody loved Eli.
Tanya Anders and her family should have been lighting birthday candles for her grandson this month. Instead, they're preparing to honor his memory with a candlelight vigil.
Special little boy.
Eli Anders was killed Wednesday night by a hit-and-run driver 9 days before his second birthday.
He was outside with his older sister. My daughter didn't know that they had already went outside because they was getting ready to go to his dad's house. That's when the car hit him and then left.
Eli's 10-year-old sister ran after him and was also hit by the car. Their mother, Ariel, tells News 8 the 10-year-old is recovering. Writing on GoFundMe, please pray for me and my babies. Hug your babies. Give them kisses. My sweet baby boy didn't deserve this.
She's a good mother, and that was her baby.
The grieving grandmother remembers Eli as a happy baby, always laughing and running through the house, taking TV remotes. His other toys now laid out on the front step, an angel keeping watch.
We need help to find this person because they need to pay for what they done.
Tanya is calling on the driver involved in the hit and run to come forward, saying only a coward would leave the scene and continue trying to run.
They know who they are, and God knows who they are.
Tonight, police say they still do not have a suspect or vehicle descriptions. Now, a neighbor tells me he watched another bystander recording the crash on their phone. It's unclear if that footage has been turned over to IMPD yet. Reporting live, Julia Dang, Wish TV and WishTV.com, and be sure to follow us on Facebook.
All right, Julia, thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying with us. The Exceptional Conservative Show live from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Listen, we are not ashamed of the good news conservatism, for it is the power, liberation, first to the Republican and then to the tyrant. We have a great guest with us right now, Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor. But let me play this from Rudy Giuliani real quick, and then we're going to come back to the professor.
We have a person who's come forward with an affidavit inside of Dominion that has said that Dominion observed the 100,000 phony ballots that were brought in at 4 o'clock in the morning on November 5th that were all Biden ballots that appeared by every measure to be phony ballots, since they were brought in the back door. They were not in the proper containers. They were sticking out of the paper bags and cardboard boxes. And they were told that these were ballots that were needed to catch up to Trump because Trump was too far ahead. when they were counted, they were all counted in favor of Biden. The woman who has given us an affidavit, who worked for Dominion, said that she saw not a single Trump vote. She was there for 4 or 5 hours. And it appeared to her to be horribly corrupt. And when she reported it, nothing was done about it. She was told it wasn't any of their business. So that's not a whistleblower. That's a witness on the record in our lawsuit in Michigan, which is why I feel pretty good about the lawsuit. There's 100,000 vote fraud. Do we have other witnesses for that are somewhat reluctant to come forward right now? Yes. We can probably corroborate that 3 or 4 times. So I think they're finished on that. I think that's something that actually happened. They brought 100,000 votes in. They were all Biden votes. There was not even a vote for another Democrat.
Mr. Mayor, another question for you. Have you had any contact with anyone in the U.S. intelligence community about any of these election irregularities?
I don't think I can comment on that. There is no question. Another aspect of this is, was the vote interfered with from the point of view of the computers that we used? And does Dominion figure very big in that situation, given the fact that it uses Chinese software and has a rather checkered history?
Ladies and gentlemen, with us tonight is a brilliant constitutionalist, none other than Dr. Michael Jones, who served as an intelligence officer in the military as well. Sir, gotta ask you. I
had no intelligence in the military.
That's why the Leaves are the most intelligent in the military. They are.
Yeah, if I wanted to be in the military, I'd have never joined the Air Force.
Why do you say so?
Well, the Air Force is the military. It's like the world's biggest boys club. It's like Boy Scouts on steroids. And I wasn't in intelligence. I was in electronic warfare. I was in communication countermeasures. Yeah, so my job was to gather the intelligence of other countries and then deny them the ability to communicate it.
See, well, that's intelligence. Oh my goodness! See, you should have been an attorney. A little ticky-tack on the details.
Look, when you say intelligence, and I think instantly that but we had officers on board, and that kind of becomes counterintuitive to me. So,
okay. So let me ask you here, Dominion,
because I work for a living being a tech sergeant.
Exactly, Dominion. Was the voting software, and another as well was used in 28 states and the District of Columbia, and basically the administration is saying, or at least Donald Trump and his campaign is saying, that they are responsible for 2.7 million votes being changed from Biden, from Trump to Biden.
Perhaps.
Can they prove that? And do they have to prove that in order to go to court and overturn anything the Electoral College presents?
Okay. Can they prove it? If we're allowed to audit, like your last guest said, Lynn,
yes, Kathleen.
She pointed that out to you, that you have to get the audits first to get the dirt, right? Yes. We have some affidavits. Giuliani was talking about having one affidavit that says that, and that maybe he can substantiate with 3 or 4 others that are willing to go to court, but they have to be willing to stand in front of a judge and say these things. Mm-hmm. Then a judge will decide if he's going to hear the case, if there's enough evidence. They go and they have kind of a hearing to decide if there's enough to go forward with a trial. It's kind of like the Supreme Court, where 4 justices have to grant certiorari in order for the court to hear the case.
Yes.
And the Supreme Court doesn't go fishing for cases. They're not supposed to. They're supposed to wait for cases to come to them. Then they have to decide if they'll actually hear it. Can they prove it? Perhaps. Let's say they can. Will that matter? I say it won't.
Wow.
Now, this 100,000 votes that were all for Biden, maybe that one would get struck down.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to tell you that very few judges, Democrat or Republican, and it doesn't matter who's appointed them, they will likely say something along these lines. Illegal activity occurred. However, we're not sure if this rises to the level where we should disenfranchise individuals, and therefore the votes will count. And so Trump may win the battle claiming that there was fraud, and there may be enough to change the election results, but they may not actually change the election results because I don't know how many judges will actually go on record as throwing out people's ballots. The backlash, especially the judges who get elected. Now, the Supreme Court is appointed for life, so they don't have that worry. But they do pay a lot of attention to public opinion, and we know this because Chief Justice Roberts cowardly gave in and said Obamacare was constitutional, and then went through this. What was that guy's name? Rube, the Rube engineering, where they had all those things to cook an egg,
Exactly.
A foot hits the egg rolls down, it goes to this, it goes there. You know what I'm talking about?
Exactly.
Yeah, and so that's what Roberts had to do to call Obamacare constitutional. And he just, he could have avoided a lot of these election problems when he refused to hear the case that was taking place in Pennsylvania and sent it back to Pennsylvania, where the Supreme Court there had ruled that the change in time allowed for ballots to come in.
Exactly.
Right? So he changed it instead of election night, which the state legislature had done. And we know this is unconstitutional. It was legislation by the bench, and that is not legal.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the authority to do that. All they could have done is say no to what the state legislature said and said do it again, and make the state legislature do it over and over and over until he gets what he wants, or the state legislature overrides him and goes to a higher level judge. The courts in Pennsylvania just ruled again that that there was illegality and unconstitutional legislation from the bench. But it's going to go back to the Supreme Court where they'll throw it back again. And
exactly. Which goes back.
What's happening across the country.
Which goes back to what Kathleen said earlier, where a clerk decides to send out ballots without any legislative order. And in this particular case, that's unconstitutional. The California judge that determined that the executive orders of Gavin Newsom are unconstitutional, including the mail-in ballots being sent out. So all of this is going to roll up to the Supreme Court, which will mean that even after the 14th, Donald Trump could possibly prove that he's right. The Supreme Court could, because Justice Roberts has been nullified by Amy Coney Barrett. You have Clarence Thomas, which is virtually the Supreme Court chief at this point, who would love to pay back Joe Biden. And they made the five of them with Alito saying, this has been too much tyranny. We need free speech. This may be the thing where the Supreme Court says, you know what? All these ballots need to be thrown out. And quite frankly, either a new election be given, or we stick with this election that we have, and Donald Trump must be chosen through the electoral process on January 6th in the House of Representatives
and the courts can't
and the
say
U.S.
that.
Senate.
Right. The courts cannot demand who gets chosen through the college or by the legislature. That is strictly a legislative thing. The courts have no role in that, believe it or not.
Yes.
Or how elections are done. All they can do is say, okay, here's the Constitution, whether it's the state constitution of Pennsylvania, let's say, or Georgia, and the United States Constitution. And they can look at the constitutionalities of the situation and say it's constitutional or it's not when it comes to elections. But they can't determine who wins. Like, remember 20 years ago in Florida, the Supreme Court simply said that you can't cherry pick ballot picking, that all ballots had to be counted, and that what they were doing was unfair, and that they kept changing the rules in Florida, trying to get Gore to win instead of Bush. How many times did they change the rules there after Election Day? And so that was what was unconstitutional, and that's how they ruled. So today, that's going to be what happens. But remember the caveat I told you earlier on the phone. We don't know how the Justitrix will vote. She's brand new, and we don't have any patterns on her. And this being such a big deal, will she vote and say it's unconstitutional, which it is, but will she stick with those principles of being a constitutionalist, or will she give in to public pressure and not want to go down in history as having been ran through by Trump just to make sure he gets elected president, which is what they're all saying. And we're human beings. She's a human being. And she's got kids, a lot of them. It seems like everybody you talk about has 7 kids. So makes me nervous. I want to go around saying, not mine, I didn't do it. But,
exactly. Now, Dave Milner said it was Rube Goldberg was who you were referring
Rube Goldberg, that's it.
That's it. And Barry Brockman says that you look sexy. There you go.
Well, I can't turn this off. It's not fair to the woman, Mary. I know what you mean.
We love you, man. God bless you.
Yeah.
We will be talking with you. Can you make an announcement from a conversation that we had earlier? Can you make an announcement now, or do you want to hold off?
All right. Ken's twisting my arm to have a show on Sunday nights at 10 p.m. Central. And I'm going to do it as much as I can. I can't guarantee I'll be at every show because of my health problems, but I'm going to give it a shot and see how we do.
There you go.
And if I can do it, great. If not, then we'll punt and think of something else.
You'll play like the Dallas
I've been
Cowboys.
gone long enough. Yeah, kind of like the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah. Yeah.
We love you, Professor.
Yeah. I've got my season tickets and a garbage bag to wear over my head, so I'm ready.
As long as it's not plastic.
Are you kicking me out now, or?
Yes, I have to kick you out now because the beautiful and vivacious Janice Hall is up. We got to talk about foreign policy now. The Joe Biden foreign policy.
I always get kicked out for the pretty girls. Let me just point out one thing here.
Yes.
And that is that no matter what happens, there's a drop dead date, and that's the inaugural day. And if we don't have a president selected through the constitutional electoral process, then it will be kicked back to Congress, and where the Senate will have to pick the vice president, and the House of Representatives will have to pick the president. And so states like Texas has 35 delegates, right? So we get a Texas caucus, 35 Republican Democrats will meet and vote, and the outcome of that will become Texas's one vote. And then there's 50 votes in the House for president, where you have to get 26. And of course you have to get 51 in the Senate. So if that happens and Congress has to decide who the next president is, then by the Constitution, the sitting president and vice president will remain in office until the decision is made. And then as long as it takes for transition to occur. That's gone to the Congress only once or twice, and it was chaos when that happened. But this is a stock tip from the underground professor: buy stock in plywood, because when the courts start ruling, if they rule Trump's way, plywood will be going up all across this country, covering windows.
Covering windows. And we're going to have riots.
So buy stock in plywood. That's my stock tip.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to take a hard break. The wonderful Dr. Michael Jones, who will be with us on Sunday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, God's time.
God's time. No. I already told him God's time. You're changing it.
Darn liberal.
Communist bastard. Yeah. Hey, I can see that hat behind you. Who's Raphael?
Who's Raphael?
Yeah, you got a black hat behind you that says Raphael. Is Raphael right behind you?
Israel.
Oh, Israel. Oh, never. Yeah. My bad.
But I just got to say this real quick. Raphael was the guardian angel of Israel. Yes. No, actually, it's
Look
Gabriel.
How good a job he did.
Gabriel.
How many times did it get knocked down? Yeah.
Gabriel.
I wouldn't hire Raphael to guard anything.
Janice is sitting in the green room saying, "Will you please shut up so we can get started?"
I remember the old days when Janice would kick me off. Forget it. I'm out of here.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got to do a quick commercial. We'll be back. Love you, Professor.
Bye, guys.